Good evening. I'm Officer Brush, and I'm here with Derek Zinn, and we're here to talk
Go.
about Unluckables. And so I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. Derek Zinn from Riftway Games. As you can see on my shirt here. Uh, we have a Kickstarter coming out here in October, preemptively October 18th as the date. As you can see behind me in the sign, it is called Unluckables. And today we're going to discuss a little bit about
Okay. So what is Unluckables? Is it more than just a card game? What all is it?
so Unlockables is actually created by a bit strange, the art of Christy Silva. She is my sister-in-law, and she's been creating these things, these little cute little living voodoo dolls for about, I'd say, professionally, she's been doing it for about 10 years. She paints them on canvas and sells them at art shows and makes these little stories about them and about their interactions. And she's working on a web comic series, which she previously had. She had a web comic book series up a few years ago, but it didn't quite go the way that she wanted it to. So she kind of pulled back and started working on other things, and she's hoping to bring it back here sometime in 2023. Um, but they are just these cute little living voodoo dolls, as you can see on this box right here. We have a
Hmm.
Cthulhu one. He's probably one of the only ones in the game that you would know commercially, and all the other ones, kind of like this little guy here and this Jack in the Box here. They're all uniquely created and designed by.
Okay. And so what made you guys decide to start a card game for that?
Um, Back when I was working on Beasts: Edge of Extinction, my first release, I I was talking a lot with my brother and my sister-in-law just about like little parts of the game itself, and just through random conversation, we kind of touched on the base of, well, you create these little creatures, and they'd be really cool to make a game about them, and they would go, oh yeah, we would love to do something like that, and as sad as this may sound, I that was about 6 years ago that conversation took place, and I had been working on a completely different type of like a full board game um, style game for Unlockables, and it wasn't quite going the way that we had hoped it would.
Hmm.
It wasn't giving the player interaction that we really wanted, and so we kind of shelved it for a couple years. And last year, I started revisiting some of my old projects, some of the things that just never came to fruition. And I looked again at it, and I was like, wow, no, I really love these things. I love these creatures. Um, so I immediately, my brain just started going and going and going. And honestly, within a few weeks, I had come up with a whole brand new concept, which is the premise of the game that we have here.
Let's learn a little bit more about you and
Sure.
just some of the history of Riftway games.
Um, when I was creating Beasts, Riftway Games was born, and that was probably roughly around 2016 that we really started putting some effort into it. Prior to that, I had actually tried putting a board game company together with Devin Lewis, who actually works for Steve Jackson Games. And we were trying to push out a game which we that was probably about 2012, and we tried to push out our first game called Perilous Pyramids. And we were both like really new to any of this, and we tried putting it on Kickstarter, and we were promoting it at Board Game Geek Con and a bunch of other places, but unfortunately we didn't meet our goal for it. So we after that we kind of both we were working on games, but for the most part, just kind of went our separate ways. He got hired in over at Steve Jackson, which, as you know, that's another board game company, a huge board game company. And so I went ahead and just started kind of going out, plotting my own way. And that's really where Beasts came from, and the start of Riftway Games.
Okay. And real quick, we can kind of touch on what Beast was and like how was that experience on Kickstarter.
So Beasts, I've actually got it here. Uh, Beasts is a 2 to 6 player elimination style card game where you play as a near extinct beast trying to survive battle royale style against everybody else. So you're trying to basically be the last person standing in the game, that hit Kickstarter in 2019, and it did really well actually. we made our goal on Kickstarter right away. We then moved over to Indiegogo with that, and did the extension to just get some more sales going, and try and give as much as we could back to people, because the more money we make for it, the more cool stuff we can produce and give to everybody. And so we did really well there too, and then we did even better in our pledge manager after the fact. So we had a really a good campaign with that first game, and I was very blessed by the amount of people that put their interest into something that I had created as a first time game publisher. It was fantastic for me. Um, then 2020, just a year later, we actually released an expansion, which I'm trying to dig out here, because I have it inside the game box,
Hmm.
which is just a little 18 card expansion. But what it does is let the people who were eliminated in the base game continue on and mess with all the players, the living players in the game, and they work cooperatively. So if four players are eliminated and there's two players left in the game, if they can all cooperatively work to eliminate those last two players at the same time,
Hmm.
they actually win the game. So it's a second chance at winning, and it really has kind of made the game. Um, we have a lot of people, and especially some of the reviews, just say that they just can't play the game without it anymore. It's so integral to it. So I like that. So that's Beasts. That's still available online. You can get it from us at conventions and stuff like that. So it's not sold out either. So if anyone's interested.
Okay. And how did that kind of translate to your gameplay creation for Unluckables?
I realized when putting that game together that I needed to stop trying to think so big with how I do things. Similar to how Unlockables started as being more of a full board game, my original concept with Beast was actually the same thing. It was a resource management game, and you were utilizing all these beasts to attack other players and steal their resources, and it was kind of a hunter gatherer type thing. But again, it was such a big concept in my mind that as I would continue to put it all together, there was too many moving pieces and just too much. And so when I kind of cut the fat and just focused on its main aspect, which was attacking people, which was trying to survive. That's kind of where I came with Unlockables too. Um, the main part of the original Unlockables board game was playing tricks on people and trying to collect things. And so I focused just on the interaction with other players. So in this game, you're trying to actually adopt these living voodoo dolls into your home, and you do so with their favorite treats, which are called skellies. They're just these little tiny skelly candies. Just kind of like any kind of candy you'd buy from a store, but it's just what they love. And so what happens in the game is it's kind of a light engine builder. So you start with your home, which is the space in front of you, and you're already generating one skelly. And that one skelly gives you the ability to adopt unlockables that may be of a value of, or have a cost of one. Um, or if there are unlockables that cost more, there are other ways to get them without already being generating it in your home. So your goal is to continue to adopt these little guys, and each one of them has a special ability that you gain as soon as you adopt them. So you might be able to steal cards from other players, or draw additional cards on your turn, or you just have a larger hand size. All these different little mechanism changes that come into play every time that you adopt a new unlockable. So your game is constantly expanding, and every player has a different has different abilities, and every time you play, it's just slightly different because of what you're gaining and kind of abilities you might have from each one of these.
Okay. And so how would someone get started on this kind of game? How would they set it up? What would they do on, like, what's the goal is to kind of collect the most, right?
The goal is to collect 13, or sorry, to have 13 or more skellies being generated at the end of a round. So multiple people can actually do that, and there is a chance that people may tie at the end of a game, but there are tiebreakers in the game as well. But you want to have 13 or more. And that's with the base win condition. We've actually got a couple alternative win conditions that you can add to the game, which increase the strategy or increase just the excitement of how it's played. But essentially, you're getting a deck of cards. You're getting 3 cards in your hand at the beginning of the game, and then you have 3 turns to utilize each round. And it goes round robin style, with the first player changing every round. And you can use those actions to draw cards, to play cards, to adopt unlockables if you have them in your hand. There are tricks that you can play on other people, which cause problems for them in their play. And there are support cards that you can use to improve what you're trying to do. There's aid cards in the game which are free to use, and they also help with what you're trying to do, primarily with trying to help you adopt unlockables specifically. And then there's reaction cards as well in the game that if someone else kind of Uno style, where if someone else does something, you can immediately play that card on them. And whether it's reversing the trick that they're trying to do or giving you the ability to take something that they have discarded, those are all different aspects of the game. Then there's also the unluck deck, which is kind of filled with all the really bad stuff that you want to try to avoid, but sometimes is almost impossible. So some of these unlockables, they actually have a value on them that force you to draw unluck cards. And so the unluck cards may force you to discard additional unlockables from your hand. It may cause you to give cards to other players. So here we have I'm wa- I'm watching you, and this one makes you discard tricks.
Okay.
We have we have Captain Disaster here that basically says you cannot draw luck cards on your next turn. So all the research cards that you're drawing are actually called luck cards, and then all of these other ones are called unluck cards.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of different ones. There's ones that can actually be attached to your character, which force you to lose your Skelly generation. So that's even worse. And then there's ones that make you just completely fail at adopting an unlockable. Or you have to give a unlockable from your home that's already adopted to another player. So neither one are happy things that you want to have happen to you.
Okay. So
Um, So just to kind of give you an idea of some of these cards, there's different types where this one is a collection. So if you get this and a bunch of other ones that are of similar style, and they'll have the text and this kind of icon right here for
mhm.
collection, you'll actually gain bonuses towards the end game. So the more that you have, the more of a bonus you may gain. And then there's items like Teddy here, which are items that you attach to your character, which actually increase the abilities that they have. So you have a couple different items that are in the game that when you attach them on, you gain exactly what it says on there. Whether it's this one right here specifically is a constant, which means that you just have it no matter what. But there are other ones that have, for instance, like Gloomy Clops here is an instant. So that instant means that you get to do that ability as soon as you adopt, but you don't get to use that ability ever again.
Mhm.
And then there are your standard ones like this item here, which is an activation. So an activation allows you to activate it as a turn or as an action on your turn. Once it's been activated on your turn, you cannot activate it again until your next turn. And that
Mhm.
pretty much applies for every unlockable or item that has an activation on it as well.
Okay. Speaking of actions, how does someone's churn play out? Like, what can they do?
So there are 6 different actions. I believe it's 6 different actions that you can do. Um, Let me go back in here and see if I can get a full-on read for you. So yes, all right. So there are 6 actions that you can do in the game. You can draw, which is just drawing a luck card from the luck deck. You can play, which again is just playing a luck card. Whether you're playing like a support card like this that allows you to dig a card out of the discard pile and use it and utilize it. Those are different things that you can do. You can adopt, which is as long as you can meet the value. And I'm going to pull Gloomy Clubs here. As long as you can meet the value here, which is this 3 inside the star. That's how much it costs, basically. So what you're generating is right here. So with each new card, or each new unlockable that you have in your home, you generate this all across the board. So if you have 3 different cards that are generating that, you can then go ahead and adopt this one without a problem. And that doesn't, it's not like money. So you could adopt one that's a 3, and then all of a sudden your next turn now you have 4. So you can then go ahead and adopt one that's 4, and that helps you continue to build on. But as we said with the unluck is right here. So in order for me to successfully adopt this, I have to draw 2 of those unluck cards, and I have to pass both of them in order for it to be successful. So sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Um, Next thing you can do is release. So release is kind of an interesting aspect, which helps you go towards your goal of adopting. So say I had 3 unlockables in my hand, and each one of these unlockables has a generation of 1. Uh, but I wanted to adopt one that has, let's say I wanted to adopt one that was 3. So I have another one of these cards in my hand, and I'm only generating 1 because it's the beginning of the game. So what I could do is, in order to be able to afford that, I can actually, for an action, discard those 2 and temporarily gain that amount. So I now have 3 to go ahead and adopt this right here. But then that is done. It's temporary and only usable, and it costs an action to do. The next thing you can do is, as I said earlier, you can activate. So when you have one of those unlockables with the activation on there, you can use one action to activate it, and then it cannot be activated again until your next turn. And then the final thing you could do is similar to how Beasts is, and it's a rare action, but you can trade. So yeah, you might find it kind of strange to try and trade with people that you're trying to compete against. But every once in a while, especially if you have like a 6-player game, you might not be worried about, John or Lisa, but you really want to go against Joe over here. So you want to offer a trade to somebody to get something that you think is valuable for me or for the other person, and as long as it's accepted, as long as the trade takes place, it uses an action. So you can offer multiple trades simultaneously and say, hey, I'll trade you this. Okay, well, what about this? Until you come to an agreement. And if they don't want it, then you go over to the next person. Okay, well, what about you? And you kind of try to negotiate. So while I call it trade, maybe I should have called it negotiation, but I think trade kind of sets in the tone just as well.
Okay.
And that's it. Those are the actions that you can perform.
Okay. How many turns does this usually take? Like, what's the average play
Um,
time?
Average playtime is about 45 minutes. It can take less, especially for people like me and those that play tested a lot. We can go through a game in about 20-25 minutes, even with like 4 or 5 players. Once you get into that 6-player count, you definitely hit more of the higher time frames. But it's still about 45 minutes to play through an entire game. And I'd say you get anywhere between 9. Sometimes actually we've had a game where we had only 6 rounds for them to win. um but uh but yeah, it's usually about 9 to 12 rounds, sometimes 13, 14 rounds in order to win the game, and that's kind of on the high end.
Okay. And what do you think the ideal player count is for this game?
I'm a more the merrier type of person. um Sorry, let me do it again. Okay, that sounded terrible. I'm a more the merrier type person, so I tend to like it at 6 players. I like having all that player interaction.
Mm.
Um, I like having a bunch of different people just able to do different things and not know it's going to come from left field. So for me, I think the game really plays the best the more players that you have with it. But I've played some really fun games where it's just me and my fiance, and we're just kind of going back and forth, and that's where you get kind of that 15-20 minute game played. But it's I'd say ideally I 5 or 6 players to me personally, but that's personal preference.
Mhm.
We have a lot of play testers that take the game and just play one on one, and they love it, and we play it one on one here at the house, and we still love it too. So I don't think it has a specific player count that it plays the best, which is awesome because
Mm.
Beasts definitely has a player count where the more players you have, the better the game is because there's just more going on. So I like that I'm able to improve upon my previous game with being able to keep keep the player count as even across the board and the game fun even across the board despite the player count.
Okay, and so you talked about playtesting, and so how did this whole game development come around, and what was the process for that?
Typically, what happens whenever I have a game idea, I sit and I put it all together in a spreadsheet, and I kind of lay everything out. Then I pull it out from the spreadsheet, and I make like little, cheap, just has the words on them, cards that I print off on a home computer, and I've got my little guillotine cutter that I cut it all up with, and everything, and then. I usually just get on the phone and say, "Hey, I've got a new game. Let's who's on board for it?" And we get a good group together usually between 4 and 6 people whenever there's a new game to process. Uh, but um, we'll play through it, and then the cards are just like white paper. So if we have something that we don't like, we'll cross it out and write the new thing on there, and just keep going. Very old school in the way that I do it. And then once we get to a point where we're like, okay, yeah, this is flowing well, then I move on and I start working with getting art together. So, like for instance, she already had a lot of this art completed. This is artwork that she's been working on for a decade. So I was really lucky to be able to have stuff like for concept art. She's redoing a lot of it for the game, but a lot of the stuff was already there that I could use for concepting. So I was able to pull that and do all the graphic design around it, and just put the images in there to really give it kind of vibrance and attention. And then we play again with all that. And I'd say, I mean, there's probably been 30 different iterations of the way that this game plays. Um, and things that are in the game that are integral to the game now that were never there in the beginning of play testing. So it's a long process, and it's a lot of games that you end up having to play. You probably play the game 100 200 times before ever taking it to like a con to have anyone else play test it. So it's this just I'm lucky to have some friends that are just really patient and really interested in the process of how it kind of flows, and how it goes from being this idea that sort of works to okay, hey, this is great. Now that you've got all this stuff put together, let's order something from the game crafter and start playing with real cards and start showing other people and start playtesting it with them and so on.
So was this game made with a lot of community feedback when it came to playtesting and like new ideas coming out?
Yes, yes. I'd say a good probably 50% of what kind of went into this game came from just other people, just playing it with other people at whether they we're kind of the central home for play testing and games and stuff like that. So everyone kind of comes here to play, and so just about anytime we have a game night, which is pretty often, we bust it out. It's either the first game we play or the last game we play, and I always make sure to get it to the table so that we have some input. And we started mostly like just with the group of friends, and people come in and out. So you've got a good amount of people and a good amount of minds coming in, and some people that aren't gamers at all that sit down and play, and I actually think that's even uh, more valuable when I have someone bring their girlfriend over that maybe they don't play, or their boyfriend over that don't, or husband that doesn't play games at all, and they sit down and they learn it and they're just like, oh, okay. It really kind of opens things up for me to understand how other people look at it, and what is easy to learn and easy to understand, because that's a main focus for me, is trying to keep games as simple as someone can sit down and 5 minutes later already start playing. Outside of that, we go to conventions. We play tested over at BGG Con in the spring. We brought it to the table, got some input from just random people, and you know what? I'd say we get probably some of the best input from just random people that come over to our booth and start playing the game. And just like, hey, what would be cool if you did that? I'm just like, yes, let's do that. So, I make notes and then come back and try them all out. I can't say that every single idea that people give, people have end up in the game, but they may influence other things that may go on. So, their idea may not directly be implemented, but it could have influenced something else that was directly implemented. So the community, I think, with board games in general is just integral because I don't think a lot of games that we play would be anywhere close to being as good as they are if it wasn't for just random influence from everybody else around you.
All right. So let's talk about the Kickstarter a little bit. What all is when you already mentioned the launch date, but what is some of the stuff that's going to be included in the pledge? If you can, what's the price going to be, and just that kind of information.
We're still kind of nailing down the price, but it's going to be somewhere around the 25 mark for just the base game. So you'll get the base game, which will include about I think it's near 170 cards in total, which is a lot of cards. But we just the more we kept trying to pare things down, we kind of were realizing we don't need to. We're giving them exactly what they should have. So instead of doing 3 or 4 expansions and instead of doing like a 4-player game and then hey we have a 5 to 6 player expansion available, we just threw it all together. We just want everyone to have as much fun as possible right off the bat with the base game itself. um, that said, there are items that we're also giving as well. The game itself doesn't come with a first player marker, but for the Kickstarter we do give away these little skelly first player markers. They'll come in a bunch of different colors. I'm trying to get a hold of them. We're going to be making them quite a bit ahead of time just so that we can have enough of them for the Kickstarter. What we're also going to do, and I'm going to take a step back here, is the playmat. So the playmat, what it does is allow you to track your current skelly power, so that all players, it sits in the middle of the table, and the luck deck goes here in the white spots, and the
Okay.
unluck deck goes in the black spots. So you'll have that central, and then you'll have the outside for. I'll show you here for these little unluckables. They're actually peoples. They're made by I actually don't have that. I think Brybelly Company I think makes them. But they look so much like the Unluckables, just their shape and their style that we decided to get a wholesale partnership with them in order to offer them. So that those 2 items will come together. You'll get a handful of 6 different what we're calling Unluckables, the 6 different people, and then the playmat as well together. For people who don't really care about the big playmat and the little, moving around, we still have a small playmat just like Beasts did. And then the small playmat has spots for, your luck deck and your unluck deck as well. It's almost exact, and it's made by the same company that makes the Beasts ones. So you're getting good quality. Um, we also have unlockable T-shirts. Mine's been worn probably about 100 times, so it's a little bit worn out, but you get the idea. We'll have unlockable T-shirts that'll be available as well. They'll be in a couple different styles. It'll be just your standard unisex style. We'll also have a female a baby doll style, and then we will also have them in kids and plus sizes. So we're gonna try and make sure we can cover everybody who might want them. We're undecided if we're going to do different colors than purple. I think that purple is what we're going to be set on, but if I might go ahead and do a poll and allow backers to kind of decide on that. So we'll see. We're going to try to do a little more interactions with this one than we have in previous ones. I was really new to it doing Beasts and even the expansion. I did end up in the expansion allowing people to vote on the additional playable character. So that was cool, and I want to do more of that with Unlockables. I want people to be able to vote on different aspects that are kind of being implemented at the end while we finalize the artwork, while we finalize our shipping and everything. So I think that'll be kind of cool. I think it'll bring a little bit more interest and invest people investing themselves into the game.
Okay. Is there going to be an all-in pledge level for the add-ons as well, or is it all just going to be the single pledge level?
There is an all in, but it's not technically 100% all in. It includes everything except for everything except for this playmat,
Hmm.
because you don't really need this playmat and the big one at the same time. So I have an all-in pledge that is the T-shirt, the base game, the big what I call game mat instead of playmat, the game mat, and the little the little player markers. So you'll get all of that as one, and I think that's going to be somewhere around 70 for everything. So it's still, I mean, it's still pretty
Hmm.
reasonable. I'm one of those types that goes through Kickstarter, and I'm like, anytime I see a reasonable price game, I'm just like, I'm buying it. Hopefully I like it. If I don't, I'm giving it to a friend.
Okay. And how long's the project going to be going? And what are some places that they can go right now to follow and get more information?
So it's going to be a 30 day. We're looking at launching with Kickstarter's approval, of course. We're looking at launching on October 18th. So we're hoping to get that, and it's going to close actually just a couple days after Board Game Geek, the November Board Game Geek Con. So we're hoping to get a kind of a last bit rush with all of our promotion there at BGG, um, and hopefully unlock some of the really cool add-ons and things like that that we are going to put in for some stretch goals. Um, but I think it's going to end probably on the eight, or sorry, it's going to end on the 19th, I believe,
Okay.
somewhere around there. So it's between like the 17th and 18th start, 17th, 18th, 19th end, somewhere around those dates. Um, we're still finalizing that and getting our Kickstarter link. Hopefully, once we have that, it will be out in time for this video, and you'll see it down here somewhere.
Hmm.
I think around here, maybe. Um, and then, sorry, what was the second part of the question?
It was where are some places that they can go right now to learn more?
So you can go to riftwaygames.com. And we have a tab on our top menu that you can click on that says Unluckables, and you can click on that. It gives some information on the game, and also a place for you to sign up for our newsletter, which will be the first place where we post, "Hey, we are launched." So that'll be the first way to get on, to right off the bat. And we will have an early bird pledge as well. So you'll be able to jump on that, especially if you're one of the first people on board. Um, we're actually going to do some tiered, I think, so that if you missed out at the beginning, that's okay. You'll still be able to do something else a little bit later, and we may do something special for Board Game Geek Con. Uh, so I don't like the idea that some of the early people get benefits that some of the later people don't, but I see a value in it. But I want to give people value throughout, as we move along. So we'll see what kind of cool thing we come up with as we go in the final planning. You can also go to Facebook and look up Riftway Games there as well. Pretty much on almost all social media, you can look up Riftway Games, but we're the most active on Facebook. Um, and then you can also find out some more information just on Unluckables, the art, Bit Strange, the art of Christy Silva. If you go to unluckables.com, it takes you actually directly to some information on what she does. And she's got things for sale, artwork, just artwork that's like in the game up for sale that you can buy directly. She has other items like pins and buttons and stickers and other things that show her artwork that are available as well. Um, and new stuff just coming out all the time. She's got, I guess, these cool little vampire 3D vampire unlockables that are actually you can write on them. So they're called. I don't want to get this incorrectly, but I think they're like worry friends or something like that. So if you're it's for people that like that's that so people like me, and others that may suffer from depression and things like
Hmm.
that you can kind of take this little guy and you can take some chalk and you can kind of write your worries on them. And the whole concept with Unlockables is that they absorb your bad luck. So it's really fitting and just really cool. Some of the creative things that she's coming up with and are just going to continue on. We really wanted to get an Unlockable doll, like a plushie made for the Kickstarter, and there's still a chance. There's a very small chance But trying to get something like that together has been really difficult. But if it's available, we'll let people know. And of course, all the people that are signed up to our email list, they'll be some of the first to know about just about everything, especially that. Um, so yeah, those are pretty much the places that you can find us, and you can also look online and just search Earthway Games, search Unluckables, search YouTube, see what comes up. Because half the time I don't even know.